to Let's Talk with Lakshmi, a show about us, our people, our community, our culture, our experiences. Guys, I am super excited to welcome everyone back on to Let's Talk with Lakshmi, but I'm even more excited to introduce a dear friend of mine. Many of you guys know him because he's absolutely no stranger to our community. He is a community leader. He is a public advocate, in my opinion, and he's here to fight for each and every one of us. He has been here like since the age of 1 year old, and now he's looking to be your city councilman in District 28. Japneet, welcome to Let's Talk with Lakshmi. How are you?
I am okay. Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. And you know, I saw you here the last time you were running for city council.
Absolutely.
Came in number 2, so I got to congratulate you on that. But this year, we want to see you become number 1 and make that seat. So I'm just going to jump right into it, Japneet.
Let's do it.
What are some of the issues that you're focusing on in this campaign?
First and foremost, thank you so much for having me, and beyond having me on this show, being a great friend, not just to myself, but the entire community. The work that you have been doing for decades, and before that, I've got a chance to learn about your mother and the family lineage that you come from, and the service that you have been doing for this community of Richmond Hill, Little Guyana, Little Punjab. You know, it's truly no words of gratitude that we can say is enough. So thank you for all the things that you've been doing for our community, for even before I got involved. So, and like you mentioned, last time we came number 2, but number 2 is not good enough for us. You know, we come from a heritage and a community that only accepts number 1. So, you know, we have to continue fighting. And the 3 main issues that we're fighting on right now is public safety, equitable education, and sanitation. We want to make sure we finally get the funding that our community deserves, that we've been left out of for decades, since we've been here, since the 80s and 90s. A large population of our community members started immigrating to this community. But if you look at Little Guyana, if you look at Little Punjab, if you look at Little Trinidad, we are one of the least funded communities across the city. So, you know, these street signs are great, these co-namings are great, but if there's no funding coming to our communities, what's the point of that? So that's what we're fighting for, finally a representation that is equitable and equal to other parts of the city.
So you say we're one of the communities that are least funded.
Yep.
Now, least funded in Queens?
No, least funded in New York City.
In New York City.
Absolutely.
So let's say if there's 100 towns in New York City,
right,
what number would we fall?
Out of 100, probably the bottom 10 percentile. So the bottom 10%. And if you look at our discretionary funding, capital funding that even our current council member has been allocating, this council person has been in office for 8 years. We actually, every dollar that's spent in South Jamaica, 20 cents is being spent in Richmond Hill and South Oakland Park. So that's 1/5, right? So 20% of what is being done in other communities, we're only receiving 1/5 of that. So that's a huge testament as to how much more we need to do. And again, COVID is a prime example. I know that was, it seems like yesterday, but that was already 5 years ago. We had some of the highest level casualties in our community, but guess what? Even though we were on the front line serving our communities and other communities, we were the last neighborhood to receive vaccination sites. We were the last community to even receive testing. So, you know, the fact that our community was some of the highest numbers of our community members are being impacted, we were on the last of the priority list.
I do remember that.
Of getting funding. And another thing.
And that's something that falls within the city council district?
100%, especially when our city council member is the speaker of the council, right? When you're second highest in command of the city of New York, but you are not investing in your own community, what good is that for us? The people that voted for you, right? And because I think sometimes there's a confusion as to the city council speaker, and the city council is a little bit different. You can only become city speaker if you're a council member. So we don't elect the speaker, we elect the city council member. And then the council members, which is there 51 of, they elect the city speaker. So guess what? You can't become a speaker unless you're a council member. So how can you forget the people that voted you in when you're on that, have that platform?
Okay. Now, Jap, you mentioned your top 3
Yes.
issues would be sanitation,
Yep.
public safety, and education.
100%.
How do you plan to improve these topics when you become city councilman?
I think the biggest thing is creating partnerships, right? I think right now I'm the only candidate in this race that can bring people together, bring communities
Why
together.
would you say that?
I
I mean, that's a very strong statement.
It is. It is. I think when you met me 4 years ago, I don't think I had much of a track record to showcase that. But the last 4 years is a testament to exactly that. If you see the work that we've been doing over the last 4 years, whether it's on non-for-profit side, I just worked for the Public Advocate's Office, and it's funny. Some people were asking me when I was working for the Public Advocate, what is the Public Advocate? The fact that the Public Advocate has been around for years, but in our community, they didn't even know what Public Advocate is, but we introduced the second highest ranking office of this in the city of New York to our community. But that's a testament as to what I want to do when I was appointed to that position. I want to make sure city resources are coming to our community, right? So on the not-for-profit side, we have collaborated with the Indo-Caribbean community. We have collaborated with the Black community. We have collaborated obviously with the Sikh community. And constantly, every event that we do, whether it's immigration town halls, whether it's distribution events for food pantry, toy distributions, school supplies distributions, safety classes, we want to make sure we include everybody. And that's what we've been doing for the last 4 years.
Okay. And what about sanitation? How will you improve sanitation?
I think
I'll tell you, sure. I hate driving down just the Van Wyck, the
Absolutely.
Local road on the Van Wyck. I mean, right now there's construction, which I feel will never be over.
Yep.
I'll die before that construction's over. But there's so much garbage. Just
Absolutely.
driving there, there's so much garbage just as a driver, and you get stopped at the red lights. I hate seeing that garbage. I know there's a lot of complaints on Liberty Avenue, which is a huge shopping area in your district.
100%.
In our district, I live in the district too. And it's horrible seeing all that garbage. I mean, why is garbage such a big deal?
Because they're not funding it. That's the short answer, right? I think, again, when I broke down the numbers as to where our funding is going, when you have 20 cents for every dollar that's being spent, obviously that affects things like sanitation, education in your own local communities. So I think the first thing I would do is have an equitable budget that is restoring the integrity and respect of our communities. Only because we want to fund sanitation in other parts of the district doesn't mean we need to compromise one of the busiest business districts in our community. And guess what? The first zip code that people have to drive through once they land at JFK International Airport is ours. Right? So the fact that they have to drive through 11419 and 11420, yet we have some of the dirtiest streets, that's unacceptable. And I think, again, you need people that care for the community first. And second, another thing I would like to do, which will help us continue to have a dialogue with our community members, is have an office on Liberty Avenue. Right now, we have a city council office that doesn't serve 2/3 of the neighborhoods that it claims it does, because it's at the end of the district. So people like you and I, who are hardworking people that don't have time for civic engagement, that don't have time for these meetings, we don't even know where a city council member is. So how can you have constructive conversation with your representatives if you don't know where they're located? So the first thing I want to do is have that transparency within our community, so people can even bring their concerns up. Right now, we don't know where to go. So,
well, I have to say, I live right in the area where the current city council office is, because I go shopping there. Yes, I do know that. But you're saying in the middle. So where specifically would you consider the middle of District 28? I
think the middle would either be by Liberty and 130th Street, like 133rd, 134, or even on the other side of Liberty Avenue, right? On Liberty on 140, anywhere in the 140s. That's close enough where it's kind of like 10 minutes from Rochdale Village and 10 minutes from us. So again, that would be a hub, or going down Sufton Boulevard, that would also be very, very middle for both communities. But again, it's not only having one office. You can have more. Both things can be true at the same time. I'm not saying only because we want to have a Richmond Hill office, we're going to close down the Rochdale Village office. No, we're going to have two. We can have two, but again, that we control that funding once we are in. So instead of hiring a staff member, I can allocate it towards a satellite office, or put permanent funding, so that way both communities are heard and honestly seen.
Yeah. So Jap, people who are watching this, and they may live in District 28, but they may not know if they do.
Yep.
About what streets and what's the towns that are covered within District 28?
So there's four main towns, right? You have South Richmond Hill, our home, right? South Ozone Park, South Jamaica, and Rochdale Village, right? So if you were to look at it at a map, it's basically from 100th Street all the way down to Merrick, and then from Liberty Avenue to South Conduit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Vote for Japneet Singh, your voice for District 28. As a dedicated community leader, Japneet is committed to improving public safety, expanding economic opportunities, and ensuring equitable representation for all. Vote Japneet Singh for City Council on June 24th. Early voting starts June 14th to the 22nd. Let's build a brighter future for our community together.
So I picked up that you said home when you said South Ozone Park. Is that where you grew up?
So I grew up in South Ozone Park, but again, I got love for all four parts of our district, right? Every part has such a special element, and it all contributed to who I am as a person. I started off actually when we moved to Queens when I was 8 years old from Brooklyn. I went to the local elementary school here at PS 100.
So you're originally from Brooklyn?
I guess. That's the thing. A lot of Punjabi folks, when they moved to New York initially, Brooklyn was a hub for a lot of Punjabi folks.
We lived in Brooklyn. I mean, we landed in Manhattan, grew up in Brooklyn.
You landed in Manhattan?
I mean, that's where all the Guyanese people back in the 60s and 70s came.
Awesome.
They went straight to Manhattan, right?
Yeah.
Where the streets were paved with gold until they
right.
actually came and realized that it wasn't.
It wasn't.
I mean, I remember stories of my mom like saying, I think the token was like a quarter or a nickel or something like that for the subway.
Right.
Stories of a one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan where 14 people lived in a one-bedroom.
Absolutely.
And one of my uncles, their bedroom was the bathtub at one point.
100%.
And today he's a multimillionaire, a real estate tycoon, and this is what happens when you come to America.
Absolutely.
But I know you came here at 1.
Yes.
Okay.
I was 1 when I came here, and then for a portion of my life I was in Brooklyn, and then when we moved here.
I gotta ask, what part of Brooklyn?
So it was East New York.
Okay.
Yeah, East New York, and but again, like I think.
Is that where the toughness comes from?
That's where the toughness comes in.
Because sometimes there's like this little toughness about
Listen,
you.
I think anywhere in New York you have that New York swagger, right? But Queens has its own love, and we're the most diverse borough across not only in our city but across the world, right? We're the most diverse place to live in, and the most languages spoken as well. So like I mentioned initially with the 4 neighborhoods, right? Each one has such a special element to what makes District 28. It's called Great 28. There's things we need to work on, but there's a lot of progress that has been made in this community, and we're a prime example of that. So as much as we want to move forward, we need to also appreciate our ancestors that came here with literally nothing and built amazing businesses on Liberty Avenue and Rockaway Boulevard and 1 Avenue. So very grateful to all our elder generation.
So I gotta say, you came here at 1.
Yes.
Moved to Queens at 8.
Yep.
So you went to elementary, middle school, high school right in the district.
100%.
And then college right in New York.
In Queens, yeah.
In Queens as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've had to see a lot of changes
Right.
from 1 years old to 3 decades later,
100%,
right?
100%.
What changes have you seen in District 28?
So in District 28, the main thing is that I think schools, right? When I was growing up, were a little bit tougher when it comes to like felonies and crimes, and like I'm talking about real crime, people getting stabbed. That's still very prevalent in District 28, but I've just heard of them being
Getting
so much
stabbed in the schools?
Yeah. I mean, I used to hear that I used to see it every day when I was in school.
Really?
Now it's like you hear it, but it's not as frequent.
Do they have metal detectors in the school?
Some do. Mine did. But again, like I think it's become a little bit more looser because again, crime has gone down when it comes to severe crime like that. So I think like from that.
What would you do to stop that?
You gotta get kids off the street, and you have to give them something to do. I was actually having a great conversation with someone from South Jamaica about this. Is like the kids have nothing to do, so when they come from school, they the only thing that's on their mind is like what do we do to go outside? But if we make sure after school programs are prevalent, sporting programs are within the schooling program. I think another thing I noticed since I was a child to now, a lot of the after school programs are cut. There used to be a beautiful program called Beacon when I was a kid in middle school, and that even allowed adults to come to schools and brush up on their Excel skills, learn how to write a resume. And I think those things, when we bring back and we implement that into our schooling system, or at least after school programming, it allows kids to get off the street and stay and put their focus on good things instead of bad.
Now, you always had a passion for public work.
100%.
In college, I believe,
Yep.
you were the president of your student council.
Yes.
20,000 students.
Yeah, 20,000 students. We oversaw a $1 million budget, and I had the honor of serving as president 2 years back to back, and that's where I think my love for public service really began, because we had a lot of milestone victories that allowed us to, that allowed me personally to see how much of an impact you can have on people if you do it the right way. When you listen to people, when you sit down with different communities, you sit down with people that are 2 or 3 times older than you, making decisions for 20,000 students. It was a big opportunity for me to learn that at an early age. And that's why when I ran for office in the real world, it was like, wow, like this is exactly what we did in student government. Now we're doing in the real world. So I'm so grateful for that experience, and I encourage all the kids watching, please get involved, whether you're in high school or college, in extracurriculars, because it can really introduce you to a pathway that you never thought you would want to go down.
So how are you going to be able to balance your love for public service and the demand that comes to being a candidate?
So right now, just last week, we organized 2 things in one weekend, especially with the scare that we're living in right now, with especially the immigrant crisis. A lot of immigrant brothers and sisters, maybe some of our family members, are super terrified. They don't want to come outside their house because of the rhetoric coming out of the administration that is currently in the White House. But however, what we did is we want to do a unity rally. Let the communities of Richmond Hill, South Ozone Park, South Jamaica come together as one people, right? And honestly just say, hey, listen, not everybody's bad, right? Let's not label and paint every immigrant as a bad person, because at the end of the day, the only thing that's different about the people that came in the 70s and 80s and in 2025 is timing. If my father came in 2025, maybe he wouldn't be able to raise me the way he did. Or if your mother came a little bit later, right? So I think let's not label folks with a certain perspective just because we grew up here, right? And I think that's what we were able to articulate. And then also we did an immigration town hall where we brought 6 attorneys, a bunch of different non-for-profits into our house of worship, because houses of worship were also on the list to be rated or open for ICE to come to. So it was very important for us to be proactive instead of reactive. That's one thing I've learned in public work. Sometimes, when someone passes away or someone gets gunned down or someone is a victim of domestic violence or mental health, we do a vigil to honor them. But why not do something to prevent it to begin with? Yeah. And I think that's what we had in our mind, and that's where the candidate took a back seat, because at the end of the day, for me, the reason I'm running is for the people. And for me, and that's something I told you 4 years ago as well, win, draw, lose, I'll still be here. And
you have been.
Yeah.
You have been. I mean, that's one thing about you. I mean, sometimes people, will say, I think one person, well, they didn't say it to me, but I heard somebody said, why is she supporting Japneet, right? He's Punjabi, right?
Heard that a lot.
First of all, why are you discriminating? Whether you're Punjabi, you're Guyanese, you're black, why are you discriminating?
100%.
Second of all, Guyanese people, we're the first ones to turn on Bollywood and want to watch like Amitabh Bachchan or Akshay Kumar or whoever. I mean, why is it okay to watch you in a movie, but I can't support you sitting right here? Right. But one thing that I know about you is, since I've known you, I mean, it's only been 4 years, you're by far way younger than me.
Really? I don't think so.
Yes, been trying to get this kid to call me auntie for years now. It still hasn't worked. But I've seen you active, right? Whether it's in Rochdale Village, where he has made me go with him to events there. Actually, we just went there for a Christmas program,
Yep.
and I was amazed. First of all, I gotta say it's super clean there.
Oh yeah.
You
very
could like
clean.
eat
Yeah,
off
yeah,
the
yeah.
floor.
I call it the Long Island of Queens.
Yeah, it is. Green grass, clean floors. Where we went had their own hall,
Yeah.
right? I mean, normally, I grew up in Brooklyn too. I would have called the place projects until I went in there. It's not projects. It's amazing buildings, amazing programs.
Right.
So besides Rochdale, you are very active in the Guyanese community. I think everybody knows your name. You're like, you're like everybody's little son, And then, of course, you're known in the Punjabi community.
Right.
That is what it is. And I mean, I will personally say I grew up with Punjabis. Like, I have a bunch of friends that are sings and kors.
Yep.
And, one of my best friends is a doctor. She's a Punjabi.
Wow.
And, I love Punjabi people. I have nieces that are half Punjabi.
Right.
Our queen, Miss Lotus, beauty queen Selena Ram, is half Punjabi.
I had the honor of walking her down. So.
Yes, you did. And he always says she won because he walked her down.
I think I had like 10% to do with it, just 10%. 90% was her.
Yeah, okay. But I don't like when people say to me, why are you supporting Japneet? He's Punjabi.
Absolutely.
Right?
And
I'm supporting Japneet because he's well deserving. And because I've watched you grow. It's only been 4 years, but I've watched you grow in the community
100%.
from, I'm not going to say you were shy. You were never shy, but you were a little reserved,
Right.
I think, when I first met you.
Right.
And now everybody knows you.
Absolutely.
Everybody loves you. You're like everybody's son, to me.
Yeah. And just to follow up with what you just said, it hurts, honestly, because I think that mentality that certain people have of us not wanting to support each other because of our ethnicity, how I see it, when the white man or the black man comes into our community, we welcome them with open arms. We don't narrow them into a box. But when one of us wants to do something, we narrow each other in a box. So we're already in a very narrow space to begin with. Mm-hmm. For me, especially as a man that ties a turban, I'm in a little box, like as a whole, because anything I do, it's like, oh, he's doing it just for the Sikh community. But I think since I had the fortunates of growing up in New York City and growing up with such a diverse group of people, I've always been so open to the idea of welcoming everybody. We can all thrive, and that's why the motto of our campaign is "Together we can all rise," because I feel like we are living in the most important time, that if we don't get it right now, the next 8 to 10 years will be really bad for our community. Because again, like I mentioned before, we may have co-names of Little Guyana, Little Punjab, Little Trinidad, which is beautiful. Again, that makes us feel like we have something. But if we have no community living there no more, what's the point of the signs? And that's what I always tell people. Every year, we have more and more Indo-Caribbeans and Punjabis moving out of our community than in our community. Sure. It's become basically the first level of entry when new immigrants are coming into our community. Once they get their workers permit, green card, they're out. This is the reality of our community. So we need to be very cognizant of that, and we need to make sure that we preserve the integrity of our community that made it so beautiful to begin with. So that's why, like, for me, when I sit down with you, I don't think, you're Guyanese. I think of you as my older sister that is auntie, sure, but is a human, and a good human at that. So that's what my faith teaches me anyways, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're all one. We all come from the same divine source, and we all have an obligation to each other to grow together.
And I wanted to ask you, what does the turban signify?
The turban,
because I know you didn't always have a turban.
Yes.
Right?
So I think as I grew older, I became,
because I actually saw, were you valedictorian of your class?
salutatorian.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I saw pictures. You did not have a turban at that
Yes.
time. One, tell me, what does the turban represent?
Right.
And then two, what was the turning point in your young life that
Yeah.
you decided after college that you were going to start wearing a turban?
So the turban represents multiple things, right? But more than anything else, it represents perseverance and making sure that we're going to stand up against all injustice. So, for example, in India especially, right, because that's where the majority of the Punjabi folks are, Sikh community is. If you ever see a person that has a turban and you're in trouble, you know inherently, no matter what your religion is, you're going to go to that person and ask for help. And inherently, that's our obligation to help, right? Everything that we do.
Well,
Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt you. Makes sense. So, I mean, a lot of Guyanese people
Yeah.
have the last name Singh. My last name is Singh.
100%.
And we're always taught that Singh meant warrior.
Yep.
So if you're a warrior, you're the one who fights and protects the people.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
And I think this is a deeper conversation. We'll do like something long form of this, because even if you look at my like ancestry or lineage, right? Even when our gurus or the Sikh Empire went to war with someone, the arrows that they use in the battlefield, like again, the goal wasn't to kill, again, it was to defend, right? So the arrow would have gold on it. So if it hit someone in war, so that way they have enough money for the family to take care of themselves. So it was always to make sure that we take care of mankind, right? And so for me, having the ability to even tie a turban is a very it's a very big honor. It's something I do not take lightly, because I don't only represent Japneet Singh, I represent a whole community, right? And for me, the turning point in my life was actually recent. It's when we first met. Is around that time frame. There was something a very big movement going on in my community, and when we were asking for support from elected officials, no one stood in solidarity with us. They didn't want to acknowledge it, and I'm like, you know what? Like, this is something that's insane. We opened up our doors of our houses of worship. We opened up our bank accounts to give unlimited funding to politicians. But now, again, you know this, because Indo-Caribbean community the same way. We have very big hearts. We don't ask for much, right? But we give as much as we are told, if not more. And when we saw that, when we finally needed an elected official to stand with us, no one was there. And that's why I'm like, you know what? Like, if I'm gonna enter the realm of politics, I want to make sure I represent something that's bigger than myself.
Okay. Now, I have to commend you. I know about the immigration rally that you did about 2 weeks ago. And it was a bold move, especially right now with everything that's going on. I mean, the fact is, ICE will come out especially is there a criminal at that location. And if there's a criminal at that location, of course, we want these people to be arrested. Nobody wants to be harboring a criminal or be, acting with a criminal. So yes, ICE will come out if there is a criminal there.
Absolutely.
Now, it was a bold move for you to do this rally, because I know a lot of people are scared.
Absolutely.
So I have to commend you on that. But even more, I have to commend you with the amount of people that came out.
Yeah.
I mean, when you told me about it, I said, this is what he does. He has a passion for people. He wants to help people. We're all immigrants.
Right.
The whole of America
100%.
are immigrants,
Right.
period. And what you did to try to get the information out there, honestly, I thought maybe 6 people might show up.
Yeah.
You had about 50, 60 people there.
100%.
And people are passionate about helping others.
Yep.
New York City, democratic state.
Right.
People care about people. But what I want to ask you is, what about the business owners? I know you were touching a lot upon the people. What can they do? How to protect themselves? Make sure ICE has a warrant. Make sure that warrant is signed by a judge, not just by ICE, because that makes a difference, right? But what about employers?
Absolutely.
Because the fact is, every community in America hires immigrants.
100%. 100%. No, you're absolutely.
Not everybody's bad,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no, you're absolutely
Not
right.
everybody's a criminal.
Right.
What can an employer do?
And this goes back to my initial point, right? The only thing that separates the immigrants that are coming now than the immigrants that came in the 70s and 80s is timing. Listen, man, our parents were fortunate to be born in the right generation, to come the way they came, make the money that they made, make the businesses that they made, allowed us to go to school. These young kids, I spend a lot of time with these young kids. I'm always talking to them. If you go on Liberty Avenue, a lot of them are doing Uber Eats and some of my favorite food spots are on Liberty Avenue. So whenever I go there, I see the young men just going up and down the blocks. I stop and talk to them, and they're making in 12 hours less than $100.
Yeah.
You told me 12 hours work, and they're 16, 17. They're also trying to go to school at the same time. They're here by themselves, cramped in the basement with 9 people. I just want to talk about the migrant crisis because it's so much deeper than what we know, or at least what people perceive, right? People that are using the migrant shelter system that was created by the city of New York, that they spent $7 billion funding the last 2 years, they're using that to label all immigrants as bad people. Or again, this was created by the city of New York. This was created by the system, intentionally to put the immigrant community versus citizens. And now we have a world in which we're butting heads, but that's not what it should be. If you go to any of these migrant shelters and talk to these people, because you were with me a few times and you talk to them, all they want to do is work. They don't want anything for free. They don't want any handouts. And that's the thing about our community. You won't see a lot of our folks in the migrant shelter system. Guess what? What you see in the shelter is one demographic, what they have account for. Then you have a whole bunch of hundreds of thousands of people in this city that we have no accounts for, and they're cramped up in basements, living with 9 men, right? Living in illegal housing units, right? So these are real problems we're facing as a city. But again, so how can you say that what we see on TV, we're going to use that to label an entire whole demographic as bad folks, right? And I think that's so important to highlight, which is why we did the rally to begin with, because we know there's a lot of good people that are just trying to work hard. A lot of them took a lot of loan to even be in this country. They literally stole everything. And guess what? They can also be victims. And how do they become victims? For example, if ICE, for example, comes to arrest a person that does have a criminal record, but say there were 3 or 4 more other undocumented people, they're picking up everybody.
Yeah.
And this is what they're doing. So if you look at the stats that ICE has released, a lot of them don't have criminal records. This is all factual, statistics, right? So my thing for business owners is that they have the same rights as individuals. So basically their business could be operated as a person. So for example, if ICE were to come to your business, and you have every right to deny them entry, but you can't be scared. Right, and that was our purpose of doing the immigration town hall, because we were giving out little leaflets that allowed people to know their rights. And I think right now there's going to be a world in which a lot of employers are just going to give up hardworking immigrants that may not have any criminal record just because they're scared.
But I also think there are a lot of employers that may not know that these people have a criminal record. I mean, if you are hiring somebody, let's say somebody is illegal and they come and they ask you for a job, a lot of employers are just hiring, illegal people because yes, it is cheaper, right? I mean, let's just be honest. It's cheaper. That's why they're being hired.
Right.
Now, let's say it's me. I'm not going to go and say, oh, I have a criminal record.
100%.
So the employers would not even know.
Right.
But do you think the employers, let's say ICE came in and said, hey, this person is wanted for murder, that they would want to know that, right?
I think so there's credibility behind that, right? Mm-hmm. But the only piece of credibility that would make that valid if they have a warrant that's signed by a judge, right? Because what I'm hearing and what is being reported on the news, they're just going in and hoping that they can find, because now there's a quota that Trump has released, right? That there needs to be this many arrests per day. So now it's going to be just like stop and frisk, right? They're going to start making arrests just because that's what they have to do now, right? And guess what? This is just the beginning. The bubble is going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. If it's not affecting us today, it'll affect us tomorrow. And that's
I think eventually, but I think right now, ICE going after criminals is the right thing to do.
Oh no, and that's what we're saying, right? If it's very targeted for a certain demographic that's harming our communities, that's fine, and I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
But if it's gonna start affecting hardworking people that are just trying to do the right thing, work hard, are in the system trying to get legalized, and if they're also being picked up because of these raids, I feel like that's where we need to come out strong and make sure that our folks are protected, especially when they're not receiving a dime to be here. Right. Again, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think the free handouts that the city of New York was giving out, right,
left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths.
People that aren't getting anything.
Yeah.
They're actually working very, very hard. They're paying a rent,
yeah.
right? So why not? Why wouldn't we give these people work authorization so they can pay taxes as well? right?
Right.
And that fuels our economy, and that goes right back into the system.
Jap, we can talk and talk and talk and talk, and we're going to have you back on because we have a
Absolutely.
couple more months before
100%.
hopefully you are in that seat, City Council District 28. But Jap, tell us, everybody
Yes.
who's watching here on Let's Talk with Lakshmi, why should they vote for you?
Right. No, like I said, thank you so much for the opportunity, and again, I'm so honored to have a friend like you, because this is something that took weeks to plan when it comes to doing it right. Right. Again, I think we are living in the most important time of at least my generation, right? Because city council, when it's an open seat, this is an open seat the first time in 8 years, right? And we saw what the last 8 years were like. And again, not to knock any particular candidate or any particular elected that has been serving Richmond Hill and South Ozone Park and Rochdale Village in South Jamaica, but we need someone that unify our communities. I think, unfortunately, the Van Wyck Expressway is used as a border to manipulate our communities. The people that are living on the east side, they're doing their own thing. The people that are living on the west side, they're doing their own thing. But we need someone that can bring us all together. And I think I'm the person that can do that because I've now done it, right? I've done and organized events on both sides of the Van Wyck, and we've tried to increase the diversity and shown how much more beautiful we are as one community. I know Guyana has this slogan called One Guyana.
Yes.
We have this slogan called One Community, and that's what we're preaching as we hit the campaign trail. Petitioning starts on February 25th. And another thing I want to mention, and this goes to show how diverse our coalition is, I announced my campaign on January 3rd, and the filing deadline was on January 11th. In 7.5 days, we outraised every person that was in this race already for months. And we got the most amount of donors of everybody that's in the race. So, yes.
Now, I know I said that was going to be my last question, but you brought that up.
Yes.
A lot of people are going to ask and have asked,
Yeah.
why did you take so long to announce your candidacy?
I think there's no correct time frame. It's when you're ready. And I was actually serving in the public advocate's office. I had a tremendous honor.
Because some of your opponents
Yes.
had announced like a whole year
Yeah.
ahead.
They
of you.
announced a whole year ahead, but we still outraised them.
But
so,
you still outraised them
but
and your money. Yeah, congratulations.
No, thank you so much. And
The money in district.
in district
Right.
and also New York City based. So 93% of our money came from New York City, which is the highest of any candidate. And we had 368 unique donors, which is the most for any candidate in the race. And another thing is that, like going
How
back,
do you feel about that?
I honestly, when you're in it, you just have your head down and just grinding. But when I saw the last tally, again, we were working 7 days in a row, nonstop, and I'm just so grateful to every single person that believed in the mission. Whether you gave $10, whether you gave the max, which was $175, it's again the testament as to what we were able to create over the last 4 years, and since I've been involved with the community. But going back to your question about why it took so long, again, like I said, you need to be ready on the inside. And for me, having the opportunity to serve in the public advocate's office, I was the first Sikh to ever be working for the public advocate's office. I wanted to make sure I gain and learn as much as I could in that office. And I'm so grateful to Jamani Williams, who was the public advocate, who gave me that opportunity to serve the city of New York. But my team everybody was so surprised when I decided to resign. But for me, when I was ready, I felt ready, which was the last week of December. That's when I resigned, and I'm like, you know what? It's now or never.
Okay. And I know there are a lot of people on your campaign,
Yes.
young and old. If somebody's watching and they'd like to join Japneet Singh's campaign, how do they do that?
So you can reach out to us directly. We'll leave all the links in the description. We'll have a Google form. Please join. We have multiple roles, whether you want to be an intern, volunteer, paid canvasser. Right now, we want to make sure. Another thing we're doing is hiring within the community. We want our team to be directly a reflection of our district and of our community. So I know sometimes doing campaigns, folks come from all over the city or all over the country, but we want to make sure we showcase that our campaign will reflect the community, but moreover, our term as city council member will also reflect the entire community.
Awesome. Well, Jap, thank you so much.
Thank you so much
for coming on.
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank
Hopefully in June you will be city councilman for District 28.
you. Thank you.
Vote for Japneet Singh, your voice for District 28. As a dedicated community leader, Japneet is committed to improving public safety, expanding economic opportunities, and ensuring equitable representation for all. Vote Japneet Singh for City Council on June 24th. Early voting starts June 14th to the 22nd. Let's build a brighter future for our community together.